Hi guys, thanks for joining me with another one of my vlogs. We've settled on the name, The Antidote. I'm hoping it will encompass quite a lot of the features and discussions I hope to share in my vlog. And again, as per the requests that I've had from friends and family and colleagues, I'll be sharing my journeys as well in the future, because I actually do a lot of trips around the world to give presentations on behalf of my company, Medical Chain. And I hope I do our NHS and our doctors good service by trying to represent us as doctors as well in the doctor body. It's something that's really important to me, and it's something that I was just reflecting on now. I've just seen the latest statistics by the BMJ, the British Medical Journal, talking about what is the run-through percentages of doctors coming through training at the moment. So for people that are not involved in medicine, normally somebody would go to medical school. It's normally 5 or 6 years to train as a doctor in medical school. So we're saying 18 years old, finishing at about 23, maybe 24 years old. And then normally the natural progression is that you become what they call an F1, or a Foundation Year 1 doctor. You do Foundation Year 1 and Foundation Year 2, F1, F2. And the idea is that you are developing your generic skills. You'll go around different wards, different specialties, from psychiatry to surgery to GP, building on your experiences and obviously becoming a much better and well-rounded doctor. The idea is that once you get to the end of F2, you're then going to progress onto a specialty training course, because you want to be a consultant at the end of the day. I mean, they're spending about £250,000 training doctors. Yes, you heard me right. It's about £250,000 to train each medical student to get to the end of their medical school and to make them a doctor. So as a country, as a nation, we're all taxpayers, we need a return of investment on this. So if we're spending this much on these bright and motivated people, we sure want to keep them in the system and keep them working for us and looking after our health and the generation after us and so forth. The issue we're having now is when the doctors are getting to F2 and they're making this decision of what career do I want to progress in. Do I want to now commit to being a surgeon? I want to commit to being a psychiatrist. I want to commit to being a GP. These numbers have dramatically fallen. And what I'll share is the link to the article by the BMJ. And what you saw at the beginning of the video are the numbers of doctors which have dropped. So from my year group, when I'm looking at it on the screen now, nearly about 70% of F2 doctors went on to a special training scheme. So 70% of us committed to a training scheme, and hopefully after completing that training scheme, be it 3 years for a GP and up to say 8 years for a surgeon, will be a fully qualified consultant, if you will, and no longer need to be in training and can be there to support our communities. The problem we have is the latest statistics from 2018 show that only 37% of F2 doctors have committed to specialty training, and the 62% is made up of people that don't want to practice medicine anymore, have left the country, don't want to do specialty training. Now this is an absolute travesty, and this is the whole point of these vlogs, is I feel that there's a lot of things which are going unsaid, which is known within the community of doctors and known within the field of medicine, but the general public are not aware of this. And the general public will hear things such as, we're recruiting more doctors, we're recruiting more medical students, we're going to get doctors from abroad, we're going to train them up. This is not what's happening. We need to focus on our own doctors here, and we have to look at what's happening with our own colleagues here. Why do they not want to commit? Why is it becoming such a burden for people to finish medicine and then stay in medicine and commit to a medical specialty? And this is not just being seen at F1 or F2, where there has been an investment. This is being seen all the way back into medical school. When I was applying for medical school and I was 18 years old, it was so complicated. It was so competitive. The first time I applied for medical school, I couldn't get into any medical schools. I had to take a year out, a gap year. I had to do some extra work experience in that. I worked with some nurses, and then I applied again to medical school, and thankfully I got into Imperial and I graduated from there. But that's not what's happening these days. And this is a discussion which we're not actually having. I can tell you about my own personal experiences. So after finally getting into medical school, I finished medicine, as I said earlier, and I was committed to being a surgeon. I knew I wanted to be a surgeon, and specifically ENT surgery. I did my first 2 years, the F1 and F2 that we spoke about, in Preston, or Royal Preston Hospital. And after I finished this, I applied immediately to do surgery after my F2. I was fortunate enough, I got into surgery in London, and I came back here to do my London surgical training, something I was immensely proud of, and that my family were very happy with, because they wanted me to come back to London, where most of them live. Now this is a story all in itself. Surgery in London was tough. It was brutal. It was a thankless task, I'd say, most of the time. And despite the blood, sweat, tears, the exams, the courses, the costs, the commute, the commitment, the complaints that come with medicine, I managed to get to the end of what you call core surgical training year 1 and core surgical training year 2. At this point, I have to decide if I want to embark on the rest of my surgical training or if I want to do something else. Now, from my experience, it was a very, very tough experience. I didn't enjoy it, and it wasn't this dream job that I'd always envisaged it would be. I had to step out of surgery, and I had to leave it altogether. In that time frame, I started working in A&E as an accident emergency doctor. Whilst I was doing that, I realised that this is not what I want to do either. I don't want to be in this limbo where I haven't finished my training and I haven't got to the end of some kind of training scheme. I haven't committed to a specialty. That's not what I became a doctor for. I became a doctor because I wanted to help patients, and I wanted to be responsible for the patient's care. I wanted to work with patients to get them better, to make them an active member of society, and to help them support their own family. So I thought the perfect specialty for me now is GP. I went to Leeds, I did 3 years that I said earlier of my GP training scheme, and I finally became a GP. And I couldn't be happier. I absolutely love my job. I love the people that I work with, and I love the patients that I see. And the difference that I'm making is very rewarding for me. But I've had a good experience, and I've had a good outcome. And I go out of my way to talk to students, medical students, and my colleagues to try to encourage them that it's really on our shoulders to look after our patients, and it's on our shoulders to commit to our specialties. But we have to go back to that statistic. What is happening that's making doctors burn out, leave medicine, go abroad, and think the grass is greener on the other side? I think there's a lot of debates that aren't being had right now. Why is it that doctors feel underappreciated in this country? Why is it that there's a story every other day in the newspaper talking about how careless we are, how incompetent we are, how negligible we are? But there's only so much you can take. There's only so many times you can be told you're not good enough. So many times you can be told you made a mistake. So many times that nobody stands up for you and says that despite all the 99% times that you've got it right, on this time you didn't get it right. But we know who you are and we trust you. And the patient is understanding, the family is understanding, the practice is understanding, the hospital is understanding. I think we really have to look after the incredible staff that we have in the NHS, and that's right across the board, because the burnout I'm talking about, from a doctor's perspective, my personal perspective, it happens with nurses, reception staff, and we have to have these frank discussions. Thank you very much for joining my vlog today. This has been from my office, and I hope on the next ones I'll take you on the tour with me as well. See you in the next one.